What is up, Gangrene Nation, my Gotham City fans, the Jets fans? How everybody doing? This is Tommy Jets, and we are here with the Jets Pulse, which is giving you your up-to-date New York Jets news and highlights every week. Biggest thing on the table is Haason Reddick demanding a trade from the New York Jets. We'll get into that in a little bit because I do have a little bit of a rant about that. But on the plus side, some good PR. The Jets actually had a cancer survivor. Her name was Ava. Attended one of the practices. Got to speak to Sauce Gardner, Quincy Williams. That's a great story. Aaron Rodgers says that he does not want to play in the preseason. He says it's not important. Says the games don't count. It's something that McGregor Wells, who we had on our Inner City Jets podcast, actually in the Jets Pulse last week, he actually alluded to that as well. So it makes sense. I understand why. He's a 40-year-old man. He's got 20 years in the league. He knows what he's doing. But at the same time, hey, you just want to see him get some of these reps in after that Achilles tear. Braelon Allen looked fantastic in that Washington game. The team played well yesterday's scrimmage. If you look at Brandon Pockris from Jets X Factor and the league winners, he was at the event yesterday as a credentialed media. We saw Aaron Rodgers, probably the longest practice of the day. I believe Aaron Rodgers attempted 28 passes. I think it was 17 for 28, something like that, maybe a little bit better than that. Shout out to Antoine Staley for those stats there. But the offense had a pretty good day. Braelon Allen had a nice touchdown in the red zone. Overall, the team's been looking good. Allen Lazard is making some nice contested catches. Like to see that, whether Jets fans like it or not. Lazard is gonna end up being a thing. As much as we don't want to have it happen, he's Aaron Rodgers' guy. And as long as we don't have like another wide receiver stepping up, maybe until Mike Williams gets back, it's good to see. Speaking of Mike Williams, he's actually starting to do some nice jogging through some training technique and route techniques and route training in practice. Running through those big drills that we like to see. Not there yet. We know he's not there yet, but he's gonna be there. Hopefully sooner than later. It's kind of intriguing. We spoke to Rivka Board from Jets X Factor last week on the Inner City Jets podcast. She kind of echoed my concerns there, and we'll have to wait and see in terms of if he's going to be 100%. There's a lot of concern there, but it's great to see him back. Braelon Allen looked great in that preseason game. He continues to look great in practice. We have Malachi Corley and Xavier Gibson being in the back for return duties. That's very interesting to see, especially with the retirement of Terry Cohen. And overall, it's just the Jets are starting to look good. Will McDonald has been looking all right. He looked good in the preseason game as well, and in joint practices with the Washington Commanders. And I mean, come on, the rest of the defense, Sauce Gardner looks good. DJ Reed's been looking good. Stiggers has looked great. JBC has played amazing. Shout out to JBC for his game against the Washington Commanders in that preseason game. He looked great. He gave up only one catch, I believe, and that was like sticky coverage. So you like to see that. I think he had the highest PFF grade on the defense too, which we love to see. So overall, man, there's a lot to like. There's a lot to love going on. For the Inner City Jets podcast, we'll have Stephen Stelling from Jets X Factor on Friday, and we'll also have a surprise guest for our second edition, which is Thomas Morstead from the New York Jets, punter from the New York Jets. He's going to talk about his punt for ALS, along with a lot of other great Jets stuff and NFL stuff. So make sure you guys are checking that out. But before we end the show, because we like to keep this one pretty short as opposed to the podcast, since we're doing a really kind of a roundup, I gotta go on a little rant here. Haason Reddick, what Joe Douglas, what's going on? Reddick requests a trade. Joe Douglas and the Jets instantly put out a message on social media saying that they're not going to trade him. No side seems to be budging right now. Aaron Rodgers said that he was going to talk to Haason Reddick per Rich Amini today, actually, and maybe try to get him in. But, I mean, the question begs to ask, what the hell was Joe Douglas doing in the first place grabbing this guy? Reddick's a great player. Don't get me wrong there. Reddick is a fantastic player. But, in essence, it was a 2-for-1 kind of deal in terms of the Jets letting Bryce Huff walk because they didn't want to pay him. And then they also traded John Franklin Myers because they wanted to make room for Haason Reddick's new contract. Kind of gave some leverage to Reddick in that area. But with that being said, I would have much rather have the two younger guys who probably would have cost about the same as Haason Reddick. Especially we saw how Huff was excelling last season in a limited role. Keep him in a little, you can pay the guy. You just didn't, you just don't have to overpay. And I don't even think that they tried. At least we know with John Franklin Myers that Joe Douglas did not try to talk that number down to a point where, look, we saw John Franklin Myers restructure his deal with Denver to a point where there was comments from Jets fans like, why didn't you do that in New York? And JFM straight up said that they didn't even try to offer that. And we look back too with Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff told us that Joe Douglas didn't even bother to talk to him or his agent last year throughout that entire contract process, where he knew he was going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Why wouldn't you try to lock him up? The kid was 25 years old. Makes no sense to me. He may have been a bigger contract for now, but the kid is young and he's talented. And what are we doing? You ended up going for a guy who's about to be 30, who's great. I don't want to stress this enough. Reddick is a great player, but he's going into his age 30 season. Why would you prioritize that over a 25-year-old who's putting up amazing numbers pressure wise and sack wise for the Jets? And not only that, you lose a guy in JFM who is versatile enough where he can play inside, he can play outside. So imagine, God forbid, an injury goes down to like Javon Kinlaw or Solomon Thomas or Jermaine Johnson or Will McDonald. You could have had JFM there. The lack of awareness there from Joe Douglas has to be eye-popping to some Jet fans, and it seems like it was more of a lame duck GM in his final year of the season, if the Jets don't perform well, trying to make a win-now move to try to ensure his job stability instead of taking on a team-building role that we've kind of applauded JD on. He did not do that there. People can say what they want. He did not do that there. There's no other way around it. Especially if you're not going to talk to some of these guys. And, another great example is the way he's handling the DJ Reed and Michael Carter contract situation. DJ Reed already, he's given off the vibes that he knows he's done. That he knows this is his last year with the Jets. So maybe we see a great year out of Reed, which is great. It's that burn hurts a little less knowing that, the Jets do have a great cornerback room, and Stiggers has kind of stepped up a little bit. JVC has stepped up a bit and looked good. So that stings a little bit less, but the Michael Carter one is kind of unexcusable too. Reed's a little bit older. Carter's still only 25 too, man. He's only 25. He's literally the best coverage nickelback in the NFL right now. He's literally the best. If you look at these charts, there was a chart dropped by PFF not too long ago for, best coverage. Sauce Gardner and Michael Carter Jr. are literally right there. Or sorry, Michael Carter II are literally right there. They're like on top of each other. That's how good this kid is, okay? And you're not even going to, up until, as of June, per Rich Cimini, the Jets haven't even talked to this kid about a contract yet either. So I just want to know what they're waiting for, who they're expecting to come in and save them from these decision makings. Because if you're giving this 30-year-old Reddick a contract and you're prioritizing him over some of these younger players that the Jets still have to pay, like there's a lot of people the Jets still have to pay, not even just this year, but next year. You just got to look at that. It's a lot of fucking people, pardon my language. It's a lot of people. What are the Jets like? What's Joe Douglas going to do? What's his plan? To try to overpay for a couple old guys to go in the win now window, which is great. But if you don't win a Super Bowl, what's the point? Like, you're doing all of this. Like, I don't even know if Haason Reddick brings the Jets to a Super Bowl contender that, Bryce Huff or JFM couldn't do, like, combined. That way you could have moved Bryce Huff into a more full-time role, put Will McDonald in the role that Bryce Huff was in, and you're fine. You got a young core, and you got guys like you. The defense stays young, like that. Isn't that the whole point? Is to kind of stay young, young and competitive. Like the defense was elite. Why would you get rid of a young, competitive defense and just start getting rid of that for an old disgruntled guy? Like I said, Haason Reddick is great. He's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL for the last 4 years. He's one of a handful of guys who have had 10 plus sacks in his last couple of years. That's a short list of players. So I understand that he's great. Okay, don't get that twisted. But the way that Joe Douglas is handling some of these contracts, it really needs to be addressed and talked about more because it's kind of just getting swept under the rug by Jets PR guys and Jets fans who just really love the Jets. And it's hard to blame them in that regard. But come on, man. Let's just be real here for a second. The mistakes have been made. Sometimes it's okay to admit your mistake. And this is something that I think Joe Douglas should do, and they need to get this figured out. So that's it for the Jets Pulse today. Sorry, a little curse slip. That won't happen again. Just a little passionate, I guess you could say is the word. So with that, hey, it's Tommy Jets. You guys know where to find me. Stay tuned for this Friday where we talk to Thomas Morstead from the New York Jets, as well as Stephen Stelling from Jets X Factor. So that's it for thank you for taking it in. Thank you for taking all my energy and disgruntled energy in listening to these New York Jets talk show for the day. This is the Jets Pulse, and we're keeping tabs on it. All right.